Good day to you and thanks for joining me. It is now the first week of summer and my gladioli have started to bloom. I'm Spenta and I live in USDA Zone 7. I love nature, gardening, and plants in general, and today I'm sharing some facts about Gladiolus with you. They are beautiful flowers native to southern Africa, so they grow in a beautiful climate, beautiful and also in tropical regions. They're actually hardy zones 8 through 10, though the variety that I'm growing is hardy because it's winter hardy and it's a hybrid. It's a little different than the native material, so I'm growing it here in USDA Zone 7, and it's native. It's good. It's similar to the native plant. It's much smaller. The blooms are much smaller. The stem itself is smaller. The corm is smaller, and though the flower is still so attractive, so beautiful, as you can see, we have a bee sitting on it. It attracts so many different pollinators throughout the day constantly. Between this and my hollyhock plants, it's back and forth, and now the sunflowers are starting to bloom, so it's lovely. Gladiolus is so beautiful, and it looks beautiful everywhere, not just in your gardens. The corms are actually very nice because they send out energy to send this beautiful flower up after it's done blooming. The corm actually dies back, but this flower dies back also, though the nutritions are going to be sent back through the leaves into the ground, and this plant will make another corm, one or two, and it will save its energy over the winter, and it will bloom back again for you in the summertime. It's actually a good flower, blooms anywhere between July and September. This hardy material that I'm discussing with you, the one that is hardy to zones 5 through 8, is still Gladiolus. So this one is very nice. It's hardy, so I grow it throughout my gardens. I have different colors. It's native to southern Africa, so as I mentioned, everywhere in that region they use it. They use Gladiolus for different things, and Gladiolus is actually known to be one of the medicinal plants, right? Since in South Africa it is native there, and then throughout Africa they actually use it for colds, coughs, diarrhea, and constipation. So it's considered a medicinal plant, the corms itself. And by the way, I keep talking about corms. It looks like a bulb when you plant it. Corms are different than bulbs because at the center there's tissue is solid. Corms tissue is solid, whereas bulbs are basically immature layers of leaves, if that explains it any differently. And they look different from bulbs because they're solid and they don't have the layers of modified leaves. And as the flowers and leaves grow, they absorb the nutrition, and the corm shrivels, as I mentioned, it disappears, it dies back, but one or more additional corm will be produced each season, and that's basically how this gladiolus is able to regenerate itself. And if you plant it bi-weekly, you can enjoy the flower from July all the way through September here in USDA Zone 7. And you can grow it, as I mentioned, this variety 5 through 8, and the actual gladiolus itself, the tropical variety that I've seen back home, I keep mentioning it. So I'm Persian, and the first time I encountered this beautiful flower, it was back at home during a wedding ceremony. This beautiful gladiolus is a very nice large flower with big stems, so they use it on the cars of newlywed couples on their day of wedding, and they also use it as centerpiece in the wedding ceremony itself. It's not just there that they use this flower, it's also known to have traditions at other places. It has a good symbolism. It symbolizes strength of character, faithfulness, moral integrity, remembrance. So it's used in many different cultures for different things. I know that back home, I mentioned I'm Persian, they use it in the weddings. In China, they use it also in ceremonies and funerals. And as I mentioned, throughout Africa, they use it medicinally. They also use it in the Mediterranean region. So also known to be, this is a lovely flower, traditional 40th anniversary flower Beautiful flower, and as I mentioned earlier, used to treat coughs, colds, diarrhea, and constipation in African countries. Now, Gladiolus itself is very, very beautiful. It does come up during the summertime. So as I mentioned, the corms are very nice. I planted some more in my iris gardens right here in the back, and I'm really glad about that because it does accent my bearded iris very well. This Gladiolus itself is in the iris family. Another name for it is the sword lily, and the reason it gets that name is because of the way the leaves are shaped. They actually they come out the ground, and they're sword-like shaped. So and they usually are in 2 to 8s, though mine are all in 8s, and I have some that is going to bloom back there pretty shortly soon right there. The second one is going to bloom right over there. That is going to be the second one that is going to bloom, and it's going to look really, really beautiful because right now my bearded iris are going through a dormancy period where they're taking all the nutritions of the sun to the leaves, from the leaves to the rhizomes, because they grow with rhizomes, and my Dutch iris are doing the same thing. So if that is going on, then the leaves start to go yellow, and afterwards that's when you can clean the garden up, you can clean the leaves up. But I still have some leaves, they're green, and I thought to myself, what can I do to add some color to my iris gardens? And there you go, Gladiolus, because it belongs to the iris family, and also it's a flower that flowers in the summertime. Since the bearded iris are hardy in my area and they remain green, they have, even the little ones, they will have little leaves left throughout winter time. So you want to make sure you're accenting them with something. The ones that I have up front are being accented with dianthus and other flowers in the front, so it looks really beautiful. And I just needed something to add back here, so I thought, oh, I have some Gladiolus up front, I can actually grow Gladiolus back here. So this year I'm growing Gladiolus, and it's a genus of about 180 species of corn bearding flowers. So mainly it is from South Africa, but you can find it in the Arabian Peninsula and in the Mediterranean region. I mentioned I'm Persian, so we grow it there. You can find it in Asia, Northwest Africa, Eastern Africa. You can find it in some regions of Europe, and here now in the US it's all over the place, right? But as I mentioned, it has been modified. So the one that I'm growing here, keep that in mind, that if you are wanting a perennial flower and a perennial Gladiolus, that you must find one that is hardy to your area. Perennial means a flower that comes back each year. Again, I highly recommend planting this flower. The reason I highly recommend planting this flower is because it's beautiful, it brings in the pollinators, and for me it continually brings in pollinators and adds color to my gardens here, my beautiful iris gardens that are very pretty. If you haven't looked at what the flowers look like, please check out my playlist. It is so beautiful back here in the springtime, and it is now going to be so beautiful in the summertime. I'm Spenta, and I wish you a beautiful day, and I thank you for watching my share. Happy gardening!